Amaka had no idea what was waiting for her. As she entered Emeka's house, she realized she had been tricked by a devil, but does she have a choice? Right there, she could only muster a silent prayer as she faced her tormentor. That day, Amaka was with a group of her friends talking about the last semester result when a tall, handsome young man approached them and pointed at Amaka to excuse him for a few minutes. Amaka was reluctant and wondered why it was her he called, but her friends encouraged her to stand up and hear what the guy had to say. "My name is Emeka, and I am a final year student studying law. I have been seeing you around. Your beauty keeps dragging me to you even when I fight to let go. I am helpless, and I couldn't help myself but to find the courage and express my feelings even if you will slap me." Amaka smiled and said, "Why will I slap you? I am a woman, and you didn't do anything wrong by expressing your feelings. By the way, I am Amaka, a 200-level student of the Department of Data Science," she said and stretched her hand for a handshake. "You see, this is a match made in heaven. You are Amaka, and I am Emeka. It sounds perfect. We are meant for each other." As Amaka smiled, Emeka knew he had already won. As she turned to leave, he said, "Sorry, my lady, can I have your phone number to call you later?" "Sure, why not?" Amaka said and gave him her phone number. When she returned to join her friends, they all told her not to stress the guy because he is handsome and rich, driving the latest Toyota product. Later in the evening, when Amaka was sitting on her bed in the hostel, her phone rang, and it was Emeka who called for more discussions on what he had started in the morning. Emeka was plain. He didn't have time to play the lover boy game. What he wanted was marriage and would like to introduce Amaka to his billionaire father, the popular ease consultant, as his would-be wife. Amaka was stunned when she learned about Emeka's family and wasted no time accepting Emeka's advances. Every day, Emeka was the first person Amaka would speak with and the last person she would speak with before going to bed in the evening. Their love was waxing stronger, and couldn't get enough of her man. But Amaka ignored the red flags. Emeka often ended their call, claiming a business call came in. 2 weeks into their relationship, Amaka agreed to visit Emeka and know where he was living. When Amaka entered the house, she realized she had been tricked all along. As she entered Emeka's room and saw several pairs of women's underwear, it was clear to her she had fallen for a demon. Despite knowing the truth, Amaka has no way to escape, as she remembered every door they followed to the room was locked by Emeka. At that moment, what matters to her are her poor parents in the village sponsoring her education. Without even saying a word to her, Amaka knelt down and started begging mercy on her. "Please, I am the only child of my poor parents in the village. I am their only hope. I am the reason they are still living. Please, don't harm me. I truly loved you when we met, but what I am seeing here is scary. Please have mercy on me," Amaka said, crying. Emeka sat on the bed, looking at Amaka unconcerned. "When you are done with your drama, come and join me in bed. You, an adult, truly understand what to expect when you agreed to visit me. I am not a ritualist. The only thing is that you will be here for 1 week and keep my bed warm. You will donate the pants you wear each day to me. That will renew my wealth. You and other young ladies should learn to do independent investigation before falling for a guy. I knew you fell easily because I told you I am a son of the popular ease consultant. Well, I don't even know him. This is how I make my money. Amaka, I can change your life and that of your family. The only thing is that when you are living after 1 week, you should know you will never get married or have a child of your own." Emeka was plain, and this further weakened Amaka, who continued to cry and begged for mercy. As Amaka was not ready to comply, Emeka tied her to the bed, gave her a punch that took her strength away, and forcefully had his way. Each thrust came with strong pain, and the oversized manhood of Emeka made it unbearable for Amaka to handle as a virgin. Emeka only came down when Amaka couldn't breathe and resumed the torture later in the night. In the morning, Amaka was still in pain when Emeka entered the room to meet her. She was injured and found it difficult to walk to the bathroom, and her swollen face showed the pain she had gone through. "Amaka, I am surprised that a big girl like you, a 25-year-old lady, is still a virgin in this generation. Your parents deserved the best gift, and because of this, You will only spend 4 days here, and I wouldn't collect your panties again. You are my girlfriend who visits me and spends some days. I will make you happy when you are going and change your life. Believe me, you are the first virgin I am meeting in this line of business, and I wouldn't do anything bad to you. Emeka needed to perform his ritual sacrifice, but because he had promised not to use Amaka, he later brought in a lady that night and forced her to strip before Amaka in the same room. He forcefully had his way while he made Amaka see and watch the horror even as the girl shouted and pleaded for help. Amaka was helpless as she watched the horror without being able to help the girl who continuously pleaded for mercy. In the morning, Emeka gave Amaka the honor and locked the new lady inside the bathroom and came to meet Amaka in bed. He violated her despite her injury and pain. After 4 days, Emeka requested Amaka's account number and sent 50 million naira to her. He said she should go to the village and build a befitting house for her parents and sort herself out. Before Amaka left, Emeka apologized to her, begged for her forgiveness, and pleaded with her not to disclose his secret to anyone. He reminded Amaka that he could have killed her, as no one knew she was in his place, but said he can't do that because he's not a bad person, and Amaka is too pure to be treated in such a manner. He read the address of their house in the village to her, and Amaka was surprised how he knew about it. He reminded her that she should assume what happened here never happened at all for peace to reign and for her safety and her parents' safety too. Amaka couldn't say a word, but the money doesn't matter to her anymore. Her dignity has been taken away and violated without mercy. As she struggled to walk to the taxi she had booked online, Amaka looked back with pain and silently asked God to be the judge and pay Emeka with what he deserves. At her hostel in the evening, Amaka was writhing in pain and only told her roommate, Adana, that she fell sick and had been in the hospital. She ate a small portion from the rice Adana gave her and took the pain relief drug she bought on her way home. As she slept, she could only wish for the pain to go away, have the strength to continue her education, and for God to answer her prayers and punish Emeka for his crime against her. Amaka woke up at night, thinking of the huge amount of money in her account. She became scared and confused about how to convince her poor parents, who, despite their poverty, are disciplinarians and believe in God's time. She smiled for the first time after her horrible experience when she thought of her next move and slept back in peace. The following day, Amaka called Emeka while on campus, and Emeka was surprised to see her call and imagined what was happening. "I want to meet with you at the river garden by 5 p.m. she said and ended the call. Emeka was surprised but prepared himself and was there before the appointed time. As he waited for her, he could only imagine the reason Amaka summoned her even after apologizing and giving her enough money. After a few minutes, Amaka joined him and went straight to the reason she invited him. "This huge amount of money you gave me could create more problems if we don't plan very well to have a better explanation for it. My parents are poor. Everyone knew about my financial condition. How will I explain when they suddenly see me become a millionaire? How will I explain to my parents if I go to the village and want to rebuild their house? I am still a student. How will I convince everyone in the village?" Emeka smiled and said it's a very simple thing to do. He promised to organize an online competition with the price tag of 50 million naira, and after 2 days, he would announce Amaka as the winner, and then she would use that to explain his sudden wealth. Amaka struggled not to laugh or praise Emeka for his intelligence, but wondered why he couldn't channel his intelligence to make money legally. As she left, Emeka apologized to her again and begged her to keep to her words of not exposing him. Emeka kept to his word as promised and organized an online essay competition for the students at the University of Lagos. Emeka didn't bother to go through the submissions and announced Amaka as the winner. He presented the fake check to her during an event organized to celebrate her. As Emeka presented the check to her, he whispered in her ear, "I hope you will find it in your heart to forgive me now that you are a campus celebrity." Amaka was silent and wished she could shout and tell everyone around the monster that Emeka was. As she returned to her room, her roommates and friends who accompanied her to the event gathered around her, singing for her and celebrating Amaka's victory, saying they knew she would one day make a name for herself in the school. As her friends praised her for her brilliance, She cried silently and further laid curses on Emeka. My dignity and pride were taken away by the man I truly love, my first love, and violated in a despicable manner. There's no way I would have rejected the money. I can't report him or tell my story, but I can use this money to change the lives of my parents and my life too, she said to herself while on top of her bed after her friends had left. The following morning, Amaka ordered Uber to her village. She negotiated with the driver to be her personal driver during his 3-day stay in the village and paid him in full before leaving the school gate. While on the way, she bought groceries and a lot of local delicacies and dried fish, which her parents like for cooking local egusi soup. Before Amaka reached her village, the news was everywhere. Villagers and family members were in her family's compound celebrating her parents. They welcome her to her father's compound with a drum. Pa Chibweek, her father, had already slaughtered a goat to celebrate her, and a feast was organized by her father in the evening to celebrate her victory. As tradition demands, during the feast, village elders called Amaka for prayers. She knelt in front of them, and the eldest man in the village, Pa Akib, placed his hands on her head and offered prayers for Amaka. This is just the beginning of your success. You shall continue to win every competition in your school and bring us more glory. This village, and this household, will be known far and wide through your name. Our ancestors will never allow any harm to come near you. Amaka gave the elders 300,000 naira as money for kola nut and palm wine. Early in the morning of the following day, the building engineer Amaka spoke with arrived at her father's compound with his team. They looked around the mud house and told her the best thing to do was to bring the building down and build a new one for her family. After the design of the 3-bedroom bungalow was presented, they agreed on the cost of 20 million naira to build the house, and engineer Ease promised delivery in 1 month, as his team will be working day and night. Amaka's father moved their few properties and joined his younger brother living nearby, where the family will be staying till their new house is ready. 1 month later, Amaka returned to the village for the housewarming. Villagers, friends, and family members were present to celebrate with them. To Amaka's surprise, she turned back and saw Emeka approaching with his expensive Toyota Highlander. As he stepped out of the car with his expensive suit and strong perfume, the attention of all the audience turned towards him. He stole the show, the celebration paused for him for a moment, and Amaka walked through the crowd towards him. Without hesitation, she asked, "What the hell are you doing here? What do you want from me again? Today is for celebration. Don't create unnecessary drama here," Emeka said as he continued to walk towards where the elders and Amaka's parents were sitting down. With his expensive suit, Emeka knelt down and greeted the elders and sought for an audience to talk for a few minutes. As Emeka began to talk, Amaka was boiling inside and wanted to go and attack him but struggled to control herself. "Thank you, great elders of Udom village. My name is Emeka Afamafuna. I was the one who organized the competition where Amaka came first, and I personally awarded her the money. To this great family, you have a great daughter who is well raised and well behaved. We all must appreciate Amaka's parents for raising such a beautiful, brilliant, and respectful young lady. To support this special occasion, I will donate 10 million naira for the family to buy all the household items they may need. I am also donating 5 million naira for the elders for kola nut and palm wine. I am still single and searching for a wife. I will be grateful if the family of Amaka considers me as part of them." By the time he finished, everyone was on their knees clapping and praising him except Amaka, who became angrier. The villagers were all surprised such a generous and well-mannered young man was still existing. When the celebration was over and everyone had left, Amaka's parents called her and asked her more about Emeka and her reply to the marriage proposal he made publicly. Without wasting time, Amaka told her parents there is nothing to be considered and said she only participated in the competition organized by Emeka and had won before she realized his source of wealth is questionable. Her parents quickly told her to forget it if that's the issue. A few months later, Amaka began to feel unease, having a dry cough, headache, an acute fever, and a few other symptoms. She visited the hospital close to her a few days later when the symptoms persisted even after taking some drugs she bought from a pharmacist nearby. After running a series of tests on her blood sample, the doctor called her inside his office and asked if she was with someone but said she came alone. "Miss Amaka, the test results showed you are HIV positive, but I want you to know this is not the end of life, neither is it a death sentence. Breakthroughs in medicine have made it possible to manage HIV. You will need to start with your drug immediately. You can still be married, have children, and live a normal life. But please, you will need to control your sex life to avoid the spread of the disease." Amaka sat there at the office, confused, and couldn't utter a single word. She thought of going straight to kill Emeka and kill herself for ruining her life. When she finally tried to speak, it was tears that continuously dropped down her cheek. The doctor told her to take her time, but she couldn't speak and just told the doctor she would come back the following day. At night in her room, Amaka couldn't sleep, as she continued to cry. Her friends would abandon her, and the villagers will ostracize her family if they ever discovered she's HIV positive because of their level of knowledge about the disease. That night Amaka made up her mind to go back to Emeka and deal with him for ruining his life. Amaka contacted a known cultist in the school and offered to rent his gun for 2 days at the sum of 500,000 naira. Capon agreed to the deal on the condition that he will not be involved in whatever deal she is going to use the gun for. She agreed and took the pistol in her bag. She called Emeka and told him she would like to come over for the weekend. He was happy and concluded Amaka might have agreed to the marriage proposal and anticipated her coming. As Amaka stepped inside Emeka's room, she calmed herself down and was ready to sleep with him to achieve her aim. Emeka welcomed Amaka with a hug and kissed, and she played along. In the evening, she undressed and called on Emeka to come to bed for a good time. Emeka took over and made sure Amaka had the best experience. He slept for a few minutes after, and Amaka slowly reached out for her bag, took her gun, and pulled the trigger. Emeka was awakened by the gunshot that hit his thigh bone, which made him unable to move from the bed. "Emeka, you destroyed me, took my dignity, and ended up giving me an HIV infection. I was tested HIV positive yesterday, and I knew you gave it to me. You had it raw with me and the innocent lady that day, and I knew you had been having indiscriminate sex with random people. This is the end of the road for you." Amaka pulled another trigger, which hit his head, and Emeka died instantly. There, Amaka changed her mind. She wouldn't kill herself. She would tell her story to the world for young ladies not to make her kind of mistake. She submitted herself to the police and was taken into custody. The case quickly gained national attention, and journalists granted interviews to Amaka. Amaka narrated her story and said she only took revenge on Emeka for ruining her life. Amaka was charged to court for manslaughter. At the court she provided damning evidence of how Emeka tricked her to his place and violated her for days, the messages where she apologized, and how Emeka arranged the competition for Amaka to justify the money he gave to her. The prosecuting counsel, Barrister Femi, argued that there's no justification for taking the life of another citizen and prayed Amaka should be killed by hanging for taking the law into her hands to serve as a deterrent. After looking at the evidence before him and the circumstances surrounding the case, the presiding judge sentenced Amaka to 10 years imprisonment. While her parents were crying in their house a few days after the judgment, a renowned lawyer from the village visited. He said Amaka has a good case and explained that the judge has no reason to sentence her to 10 years of imprisonment after the evidence and how she was pushed to take the action. Barrister Tunde volunteered to appeal the case at the Supreme Court. After back and forth for 1 year, Amaka's case finally came up for a final ruling at the Supreme Court. At the Supreme Court, Barrister Tunde blamed the weak societal structure that allowed Emeka to do such evil unchecked and presented other victims of Emeka who came with damning evidence of how they were tricked and trapped by Emeka and abused in the most horrible way for several days. He argued that Amaka pushed because of the manipulations and psychological trauma she went through and the realization of her HIV status, which she contacted from the disease. After listening to all the arguments, Amaka's sentence was overturned, and the Supreme Court faulted the lower court for overlooking the circumstances surrounding the case. Amaka won at last. She rejoined her family, who welcomed her with tears. But Amaka's struggle was far from over. During her 1 year in prison, she didn't have access to proper medical care and hasn't been taking her doses. Her cough was becoming unbearable. A few days after her release, she traveled to Abuja and conducted another test, which showed she had tuberculosis, and the HIV test came out negative. The test was repeated in 2 other major hospitals, and the result came out the same. Amaka never had HIV. The clinic where she did the first test made a mistake. She couldn't hold back her joy, and while she blamed the first hospital, she was also grateful because she was able to pay back what her tormentor did to her. Amaka was cured after a few months of treatment. She returned to school and eventually graduated as one of the best data science students in her department. She secured a job with an international organization where she worked as the leading data science specialist and fulfilled her dream. Because of her experience, she finds it difficult to trust men and always avoids conversation concerning marriage whenever she's with her best friend, BC. After several efforts, BC eventually convinced Amaka to give love a second chance, and BC's brother, Barrister Tunde, who fought for her to regain her freedom, connected with her. BC was instrumental and convinced her friend to give her brother a chance. Amaka fell in love with Barrister Tunde after realizing what he did for her without any form of compensation. Amaka agreed to meet with him at a popular eatery, and their love story started from there. A few months later, they were married, and their wedding became one of the most popular and extravagant weddings of the year. During their wedding, Amaka spoke about her husband to the admiration of the guests. "My love, thanks for finding me worthy of your love. Even when you didn't know me, you only heard my story and decided to fight for me. You gave me freedom, you believed in me when people doubted me, you saw an innocent angel when others saw a devil in me. Thanks for loving me. I promise to stay with you till the rest of my life," Amaka said with tears while the guests stood up clapping for them as she kissed her husband. 2 years after their wedding, Amaka became pregnant, and Tunde was around to make the pregnancy journey easy for her. He often takes her to antenatal care and was around with her the day she gave birth to a baby boy whom they named David. Amaka built a loving family with Tunde, and her story became a source of lessons and inspiration to young women to realize the danger of falling for a man easily without a background check on him simply because of what he gets, and why they must not give up even at the darkest moment. If you like this story, comment, like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories. I will like to read your view about this story.